Hey y'all, it's Zack, the legal tech advisor here at Lawyerist. Today I'd like to talk to you about LollyLaw, a law practice management platform built specifically for immigration practitioners. Recently, I sat down with John Levesque and he walked me through some of the particular aspects of LollyLaw that help immigration practitioners specifically. Have a listen and see what you think.
Hi, Zach. I'm John Levesque, co-founder and general manager of LollyLaw.
John, thanks for being with me. I'm really excited to see under the hood of LollyLaw. I've heard a good deal about it, but I haven't really been able to kind of dig into it too much. And for those who don't know, and if I haven't said this already, LollyLaw is immigration specific case management or practice management software. So yeah, whenever you're ready, let's dive right in.
Okay, so I'm going to log into a test account, and first things first, kind of give everybody an idea of what comes up on screen and how to navigate. But so Zach, as you mentioned, like Lolly is immigration specific case management software. That being said, we are trying to make this as easy and simple to use as possible, and make it very approachable for new people or new hires.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways we do that is follow a very kind of standard procedure for development that's very common with web applications. So for example, I zoomed in here in a bit. On the left is our main navigation.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be how we move about the software and access different types of records. I'm currently logged in as an admin, so I'm going to see everything. Okay.
Okay.
But if an attorney were to set this up for their practice and they've got, several different people of varying levels in the organization, let's say they have an intern over the summer,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to change the role and the permissions for that user. They'll have a menu, but they won't see half the items that are here.
Okay. So we can limit user access to certain things.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Uh, Up in the top, we're going to have some convenient widgets for things like notifications. So as things happen in the software, let's say, for instance, the attorney opens a case and assigns it out to some staff members.
Mm-hmm.
In today's environment, there's a kind of a flexible work arrangement. Those paralegals might be working from home, in
Right.
which case they're going to get an email and they're going to get a pop-up that'll arrive in the notification center.
Mm-hmm.
These will also be clickable links. So if I were to receive this and I wanted to see, well, what is this case? I can click on it to then bring it up on screen and kind of see what's going on.
Okay, and that takes us into, as we can see on the left-hand side, the matters area. So we've dug right into one of the specific matters just from clicking on one of the notifications.
That's right. Yeah. Let's do this. Just conceptually, right? For in case there's anybody who doesn't have software or uses an older software, maybe they might not be familiar with some of these concepts, but
Mm-hmm.
here's one. In Lolly, we have a clear distinction between information about the people that you're working with
Mm-hmm.
versus the work that you're doing for them. So that's
Right.
also why we call it a contact, right? Rather than just say a client. In immigration, you might have somebody who comes through the door and you want to collect information to do maybe the initial assessment and consultation, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
before they sign the retainer agreement, become a client. You can add them, okay? You can also add derivatives. So they're family members, right? Children, spouse, all of that information can be collected. And the convenience is there's some documentation that's going to be produced in the immigration process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
let's say we need to fill out some USCIS forms. Today, we might be doing a petition for some family members. And so we get their information in and we populate the forms. But then let's say a year later, the status has changed. And now that derivative or that beneficiary comes in and now wants to do a process for somebody else. Well, there's efficiency. You won't have to re-enter their information.
Right. And the information that you do enter into the matters will be associated with that contact. And so you don't have to have two separate matters for the same person. And that information gets separated from each other when you're running reports or looking to create efficiencies later down the road.
You got it. And this can happen, especially in situations where things might need to change course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I don't know how often this happens for some people, right? It seems like it, depending on where you are in the country, this happens more often than not. But let's
Mm-hmm.
say today we start a process of an adjustment of status, okay? But sometime during that work, maybe the client gets arrested, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden you got to do, a 90-degree turn, and it's a removal defense case, okay? Lolly is going to make it very easy for you to pivot, but not have to kind of rebuild all of that data.
Right. Right. Because I
Okay.
don't have to go in and turn my matter into something different. I can create a separate matter under that same contact and
You can.
not have
Yep.
to re-enter that contact information or anything like that. That makes a lot of
Correct.
sense.
Yep. So within Lolly, I'm going to pull up a contact record just for illustration.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an example of how you can get information about somebody in the system. We try to split it up into categories or logical sections.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of two paths, right? There's some firms that they want to collect as much information as they can up front, okay, during like an intake process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. And it provides a very good starting point to do an assessment. But then there's other firms, which I'll call quick starts, where
Mm-hmm.
it's volume and you want to get people in, you want to quickly determine what their needs are, and then you want to have them sign a retainer agreement and then meet with the paralegal and start working on forms.
Mm-hmm.
Lolly can work either way.
Okay.
The end result is going to be a contact record. It'll look a bit like this. Their name and info will be at the top, and then there'll be tabs of information. The snapshot is kind of like the home page. This is going to show you at a glance who they are, whether they're a client. There'll be some indicators that the software will provide automatically. So based on the type of data that comes in, whether someone from the firm enters it into the profile, or maybe the client responded with this data via a questionnaire,
Mm-hmm.
the software will do a preliminary assessment. So in this situation, it looks like there's been some prior petitions, and that just flags it for the attorney's review. So it doesn't tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just tells them kind of, hey, you might want to take a look at this.
Okay. Okay. And that's something specific to kind of immigration law.
It is. Yep. And you'll also notice that there's a section here for matters. So
Mm-hmm.
at a glance, you can see what cases this person is involved in. And there could be several, right? So it's up to the firm, or it's up to the attorney how they want to decide. Like sometimes it might make sense to have two separate processes going on, particularly if they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's up to the attorney if they want to do it all in one matter record. And that sometimes makes sense if it's, let's say, like going back to that example of an adjustment of status,
Mm-hmm.
if they're petitioning for multiple family members, the attorney gets to decide, do they want a separate case for each one, or do they want to have it all grouped under a single matter?
Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting thing to point out, because when I think of matters within case management, most of the time I think of them as projects, and if you think of it that way, like if you want to break the project up, if you want to break the case up into 3 or 4 projects, great. It looks like this allows you to do that.
It does. And again, it's the software is not going to force you down one way. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
like necessarily a railroad track.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be some discretion from the attorney to decide how they want to set it up. And a good example would be, let's say that they are working with a client who's doing several petitions, but kind of the attorneys made the decision they want a separate contract for each of the process for each of the family members. Maybe there's different circumstances for those beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm.
So separating it might make some sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Few other things I'll just touch on. The profile area is going to be one of those spots where they can get data into the system. It is data entry on the staff. So while not ideal, it is an option, and it's very rationalized and simplified so that you should only ever need to put in the information once. And then if it comes time to generate some documentation or some forms, the software will copy it over and put it in the forms. It'll also work in reverse too. So if for whatever reason you just got to get the application out the door today, you can go straight to the form and fill it out, and it will backfill and populate in this area.
Okay, that makes sense.
We track time and expense, note keeping. We also have a very, very cool cloud storage integration option.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than have one more document storage area within your case management system, we have options to integrate with your preferred cloud storage provider. So if in your office you're using Microsoft Office 365 or you're using a G Suite, we integrate with that. It's free. And what's nice is then all of your files and all of your storage is in that area with
Mm-hmm.
all of the additional benefits and productivity tools that are available there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do this. If I were to hop over to a matter record, okay, so let's say I'm in the client called Maddie Mickelson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a matter, I want to go into it. I can just click on it and I'm there. Similarly, if I'm in this record and I see Maddie and I want to jump to her record, I could just click on it and I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I show this is, yes, we do have a nice, robust search engine, but once you're in a record, it's super easy to navigate to related records.
Right. Okay.
And so Zach, the matter record, okay, layout, kind of similar to a contact. Up at the top, we'll have the ID and the title, and then it's also broken out into tabs. The overview is going to show us that, high level, what's going on, right? So we see the status of the case. This one's currently open. We see what type of case it is, when it was opened and how old it is, and then kind of who the parties involved are, who the team members within the firm that are assigned to the case that are working on it, as well as some other things like receipt notices from USCIS.
Mm.
For things dealing with government agencies, right, like receipt notices,
Mm-hmm.
we do want to provide some conveniences to check statuses. So if you do put in a receipt notice, it becomes a clickable badge, and it will open up the USCIS portal and load up the latest status.
Gotcha. That's pretty convenient, I'd say.
Yeah, it's those, it's little things like that
Right.
Can save a few minutes every day, and that time adds up.
Right.
Now, Zach, you mentioned that you typically identify cases or matters as being like a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on that, okay? Projects also include workflows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what needs to be done by a certain time, and it's a way for the managing attorney to track how the case is going. In immigration, especially these days, some cases can last months or years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's reasonable to set out the process and keep the work moving, knowing that you're going to have to step away for several months while you're waiting for a government response or
Right.
evidence from the client. And having it structured in this way allows you to leave and come back and pick up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Without having to go read the whole file again.
Exactly. Yeah. Reading the whole file, or heaven forbid, relying on a staff member who, keeps it all up in their head. And by the way, over the last couple of years, we've seen that there are great people who work in immigration.
Mm-hmm.
But if you work out of your head and you don't have things written down, you might be the best paralegal in the world. But if you're out sick, the office is going to, find that some things are going to fall through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily for you. You know how an adjustment case is supposed to roll. It's more for the organization to have that knowledge retained in case something happens to you.
Right. Because we're not going to create efficiencies. We're not going to create productivity if we don't have a team of people doing these things. And if we have a team of people doing these things, we need to move the project forward in a systematized project management method, as opposed to just, well, what do I do next? Oh, I know what to do next. I'm the attorney, and yeah.
And they do.
Mhm.
Most everyone that I've ever spoken with in immigration, they know the types of services they provide and how to do them.
Right.
The thing is it's about scaling, right? So when you have a
Right.
team, you need to be able to define what needs to be done and then delegate it, but then have the means to check in at any time and kind of put your finger on it and say, are we on track? And if not, catch it in a timely manner, get with the paralegal, and then remove any roadblocks.
Right. Right. Well, so I see you've got the Kanban board, and I think people pronounce it Kanban or Kanban. How malleable is this? How much can you manipulate the to-do and process and review done, things like that?
Great question. I think the best thing is, let me describe it and then demonstrate it.
Awesome.
So as you said, this is a Kanban board, right? The task board where you can define what needs to be done. And then it just is very easy to interact with it, drag and drop things to different statuses.
Mm-hmm.
This is entirely customizable by the attorney. And how it works is within the library section, there is an area called case types. And just conceptually, the library is that spot for the attorney to have all of their content. So their custom case types, custom templates, it's their virtual bookshelf.
Okay. Okay.
The case types, we preload an account with several dozen immigration specific case types.
Mm-hmm.
These are very vanilla. Okay, they get the job done, and it means that on day one, you've got processes that you can use.
Yep.
The attorney, depending on the type of focus that they have, they might want some of them or all of them. Okay, if there's ever something that's listed they don't want, they just come in and click unsubscribe, and it just takes it off their list. They can come in, they can look at anything that's here and edit it. And in fact, I recommend that they come in and do that when they have time, because they might have a workflow that is okay, but maybe they want to do it in a very particular way for their office.
Mm-hmm.
They totally can. And let's say that there's something that they do that is kind of not, the norm, or let's say, for instance, they're doing more than just immigration.
Mm-hmm.
They can add any type of case type they want. So there's a create new button up at the top, and then they can make whatever workflows they need.
Okay.
Okay. Then it's very easy to use it. Watch this. If I go to, I'm going to start with Maddie's record again,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to just open a new matter. So a form comes up, and we'll put in something like test removal defense case. And in the drop down here for a case type, this is where we're going to select what type of case we want.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few other details that we can tell the software, like how we want to bill for it, how we want the accounting to be. I'm going to put in just a flat fee case, but any immigration attorney watching knows removal defense is probably going to be an hourly case. So. Okay. All right, so we just opened up a new matter. It took a few seconds, and a lot of things happened in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So let me kind of list through them. So one, it creates the matter record and brings you there. In the background, it also sends notifications to all the team members. So if you're in the office and you've got staff working from home, and you meet with the client and open a case, they're going to get an email and a pop-up in the software.
Mm-hmm.
It also reached out to your cloud storage, and kind of like, back in the old days when you had an assistant, you tell them, hey, go create a new folder for this person and get it into the file system. Same thing, except now it's all virtual. The software goes to your cloud storage, creates a folder, names it, and then links it back here to the record, ready for you to upload items.
Okay, so you've got a template folder structure for each one of your matters inside inside that cloud storage that you already have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's up to the attorney. Some firms, they want it just to be a bare bones folder.
Yeah.
Others have a standardized subfolder structure,
Mm-hmm.
and that can all be predefined, and the software will do that for you.
Okay.
It also loads in that workflow. So
Mm-hmm.
because I selected a removal defense, what I have for my workflow gets loaded in, and I can use a Kanban board, or I can go old school and do it kind of as a list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
think
this is a user preference too.
yes, because I think there are a lot of people that really prefer that Kanban, but then and I don't think one is better than the other. I think there are a lot of people that just think about tasks in lists and love crossing them off as opposed to bringing them across the board in the swim lanes.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that too, and it's usually split by role. Like the attorney is usually going to come and see the more detailed list view.
Mm-hmm.
It also another reason is the list view gives them more controls. For example, let's say they want to reassign a whole bunch of tasks en masse to one person.
Yep.
You can do that here in the list view. Or let's say something happens, maybe like USCIS announces that they're backed up, and what would normally be a 90-day process is now a 180-day process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that could affect your timeline. So you can shift all the due dates.
Okay. And it'll waterfall those dates afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the attorneys might use this view, and then the paralegals would use this one because they just log in, say, show what's assigned to me, and then just drag and drop things to update status.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, there's also another nice thing about Lolly is there's a very quick, easy to use world, right? So like everything on screen, if somebody's used a task board before, they're going to take to this like a duck to water. Okay, yeah. Pretty easy. But let's say they use this for a while, and maybe there's a team and they want to start collaborating. Okay, well, Lolly has other depths that you can go to if you wanted to. Here's an example. So tasks, surface level is what needs to be done by when, and you come in and you mark things as done.
Mm-hmm.
Others might be, let's say, obtain documentation necessary. Okay, maybe this is something that's more involved. Maybe it's in process, and I want to tell my team kind of what's happening and why it's not done yet. Mm-hmm. I can click on it, and it brings me to kind of an inner posting board, mm-hmm. where I can have a log or have conversation and notes.
Right. Okay. And so it's a detailed card as it's going across. You know, you've got kind of the title, and then we can get into it and get a lot of information in that card.
Yep. If needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just depends on the firm, right? Some, if it's a small team, they might not ever, need this.
Right.
Yeah. If I were to write a note, here's another thing too, for collaboration. So if I were to write a note about this, and let's say it's something to the effect of, I'm just kind of mm-hmm. writing this out extemporaneously, but let's say there's some materials that we need from the client. We've spoken to her about it. She says she can get most of it, but there's a few things she's got to leave the state and go do. She's got plans to do that in July, like in mm-hmm. a couple months. Okay, so I'm writing a note. maybe this is useful for other people on the team to know about. So rather than just leave the note in the hopes that they come by sometime and find it, I'm going to do what's called a mention.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do the @ sign, now I can see other people in the firm. I can specify them by name. And now, not only did I leave the note, the mention will trigger an email notification and an in-app notification to that person.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you can, I see where people they'll make the note and then they'll just put CC and then have that mention. I think that's a pretty handy way to bring people back in.
Yeah, it's almost essential these days to
Mhm.
collaborate in a remote office environment.
Right. So yeah, you don't have to assign that task to them. You just tell them it's there and that this is what's going on with it. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, on that with tasks assignments. So we do recommend that. It's important for accountability, but
Mhm.
we know that things move very fast in
Right.
immigration, and you don't have to be assigned to a task to mark it done.
Okay.
Yep. So at the end of the day, there's got to be accountability, but there's got to be enough flexibility for like someone else to step in and assist.
Yeah.
The software will log who marked it done and when for any like audit traceability needs of the attorney.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so Zach, we kind of went into the project management side of things, right, for the case, right,
Mhm.
the workflows, but I'd be remiss if I didn't show forms. So this is something that a lot of people love about Lolly, and it's under the document section. So in addition to having like a very specified workflow to get loaded in, the software will also load in the requisite forms that need to be completed for that process. You can add additional ones if needed, and we have the whole USCIS library, as well as DOJ and EOIR forms and others. Let me do this.
And so you associate forms with the specific type of case that you're doing. And so when I'm in that type of case, more importantly, when my team members are in that type of case, they don't have to think, what are the 8 forms that I need in here? They just see, here are the 8 form types associated with this case. I'm just going to have to fill those out or something like that. I think that's interesting. That's something I haven't seen, and it may be normal throughout immigration software. I don't know, but I hadn't seen that kind of associate with a case type.
Yeah, we do associate that with the case type, and it's just a nice convenience, right?
Yes.
And this is also customizable. So if, for instance, the attorney's got their own particular flavor of, let's say, an adjustment of status, right? So an adjustment of status, one step, there's other things. They can decide what forms they want to have loaded in automatically.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to do, here we go. Okay. So I'm moving kind of fast, but I changed the case type. The system detected it, and I said, yes, load in the latest things. And then in my library, I hadn't updated the 485.
Okay.
So I'm just adding in the latest version here. Okay. And I'm even going to add I'm going to add something that I know is going to be very familiar for anybody watching. So an I-130 is pretty common. So here we've got an I-130. We'll see the addition, and then there's a couple optional fields to track like what stage the document is in and also the date it was submitted. I'm going to click on the I-130. It opens up a new tab, and this is where you can work directly on the form in what we call Lolly forms. The very first time you open it up, the software is going to ask you, who are the subjects? So what I mean by that is, and for anybody watching, you're probably very familiar with this, but there's sections for the petitioner, the beneficiary, the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
We go ahead and we list those out here on the side, and we color code them. And that way, when you're looking at the form, you're going to see fields and their colors match the subject that they belong to.
Mm-hmm. That's very neat. I like that. But it's also very specific to immigration, you know, I think it could probably, the idea could probably be used in a lot of places, but that's a very nice way of making this specific to the people that are going to use it.
Yep. Yeah, this is a feature or capability that can be used in other areas. Right now, we're very vertical and honed in on immigration and solving all of the documentation needs.
Right.
So in addition to forms, we also do document automation, right? Or document assembly. Then that opens it up to anything that the attorney might need.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Here's an example of what the software is doing to help kind of speed up the process of completing these forms. I'm going to go ahead and say here on the left, let's say we know the petitioner. It's going to be that client, Maddie Mickelson. So I'll type in her name. I'll tell the software, yes, this is who I want. And it'll load in all of the data that we have about this person. And that's whether we typed it in or Maddie, provided it to us over an intake. So it populates into the form on every single page, and then it's up to us to go in and review it, add any additional details, and then print it out and get signatures.
Okay. Yeah. So you just chose, here's the contact that we're associating with petitioner. And it says, okay, well, we're going to go get the relevant information from that contact and put it into the relevant area. That's nice.
Yep. And sometimes, earlier I was mentioning the types of firms that are those quick starts, right? Where they get the person in, do the consult, and then they're with the paralegal doing forms. In a situation like that, the paralegal will pull up the forms and start typing things in. And obviously, the first form they do, there'll be a lot of empty fields. Okay. But let's say they start with the I-130 and they complete it. The next form they go to might be the 485. A lot of the same questions are asked. So all the work that they did on the I-130 will carry over to the 485. And as they go through this process to complete the forms packet, it just gets easier and easier.
So for example, and let me just make sure I'm kind of understanding this right. If let's say in this contact, Maddie Mickelson, we didn't have a middle name entered. And so it had just Maddie Mickelson, didn't have Dubois. But we learned just now that there is a middle name. We enter it into this form.
Yep.
And that will two-way sync and send that information back into the system and put it into our contact information. So we can go just fully both ways.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
So there is one distinction I want to make, and that is the word automatic. So when you put something into the form, it's saving into the form automatically. Okay. So you just tab through, enter data, it's saving as you go, no save button necessary. And that's great to complete the form.
Right.
But we know that in immigration, there are situations where what you're going to be putting into the form to submit in the application to the government agency, right, might not be what you want as part of the contact profile or to be used on another form.
Okay.
So we give people the control where they can put stuff into the form and then say, I want to save it back to the contact record. So that's what here on the left, this big green save data to Lolly button. This is how you take all the data in the form and scoop it up and save it back to the respective contacts.
Okay.
So let's do this. So I just changed the spelling of the middle name. So let's say there was we found a misspelling. We put in E. Okay. I'll hit save data to Lolly. Okay. Sync is done. If I were to then go back and let's say go to Maddie's record.
We've got
Her
the
middle name is updated, and any other form that we sync her data into, it'll have the latest middle name.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, and this happens, you might start a form, and then maybe midway through, maybe a couple weeks in, the client finally comes around and returns the intakes that you gave them.
Sometimes this happens.
Sometimes, right? So you want to use their data, right? That's the latest and greatest. You might have started the form, but we want that new data. Very easy. You'll go over to that subject, and there's a resync button. And it'll ask, do you want to sync in the data? It may override things that you did, but you say yes, and now the latest client responses are in the form.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay. So Zach, this is kind of a brief introduction into forms. Okay. So I don't know if you do this much, but there's a lot of them. Some of these forms are 10, 20 pages deep with hundreds of questions.
Right.
So having Lolly forms is a great convenience, and we've got paralegals who just love it.
I have a quick question, and I'm not sure exactly where this is going to wind up going, but I see a chat button up at the upper left hand corner, or a talk like bubble. I'm hoping that means that you can make comments on the form and mention people as you're working on that form.
So Zach, there's some things under the hood I'm going to show you. I think you're going to love. What we've done so far is from the perspective of, let's say, the paralegal who just needs to get the forms done. Okay. But under the hood, there's other things, other conveniences, right? Like being able to put NA into empty fields or creating dynamic addendums. But the chat that you saw is in reference to some collaboration options that are available. So Lolly Forms is very unique. It's the only software that allows for real-time collaboration amongst multiple parties online to fill out these immigration forms. It's not, I would say that type of scenario is going to depend on the client, right? Like they got to have a computer, right? And they got to be fairly tech savvy, able to click a link and pull it up. But let's say you have an application that you need to get out the door today, but for whatever reason, the client can't come into the office. You can give them access online. They can come in and start filling it out. But then let's say they've got questions. You can jump on and fill out the form with them at the same time. Do you want to try it out?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do for you, Zach. I'm going to put into the Zoom chat the login credentials, and then have you sign in with me. Okay.
Okay. So that's what that client bridge is. That client bridge is portal.
That's right.
Potentially, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a portal. Our name for it is a bridge because here's what we're trying to do, right? We don't want to just give them, here's a page with some information.
Right.
We're trying to facilitate the exchange of data back and forth between the client and the attorney. Of course, automating everything we can, but we also are doing that with communications as well. Okay. So you can give them forms, questionnaires, a checklist of the things you want them to do, and even things you want them to send to you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Chat. So the first is the link to the client bridge portal. And then I'm going to put in the username and password for you.
Okay.
There you go. So if you use that, you're going to sign in as Maddie, and then we're going to get a chance to work on some of these forms together.
I'm in. Simple as that. Okay.
Okay. So on the left, Zach, do you see a section for forms?
I do.
Okay. Within that, do you see one called the I-130?
Petition for alien relative.
Yep.
Got it. Got it. All right. So click start over here on the right-hand side. Gets me Lolly Forms authenticating. And now I'm at LollyLaw.com and I see the petition for alien relative.
Perfect. Yeah. And I can confirm that you're in, because up in the top, there's a little bubble that appears with your name in it.
I see that. Yeah.
Okay. So we can have several people working in this form. Zach, go ahead and on the first page, go ahead and put your cursor into a field as if you were going to type in and do something.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, let's say the Volog number. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So on my screen, I see a little beacon. I know where you are, and then I'm even going to see what you type in real time.
Okay. Yeah. Very neat. Okay. So you can use this as an intake form, essentially. Send that link to your client and say, okay, well, we need you to fill out your portion of this information. And that with that sync, we'll put all that information into their client file if you want it to as well.
That's right. Yeah, there's the attorneys know their clients really well, and they know what they're going to be comfortable with. Sometimes the form is perfectly acceptable. Other times the attorney might want to have a more streamlined, condensed questionnaire experience. And so we've got intakes for that. So just more simplified web forms.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just mention this, right? So having interactions with the client, very important these days. And you want to make sure that you have things documented, right? Like that you met with them, that you recorded kind of what they said, right? Because you're going to rely on that information. So questionnaires on the bridge, great for that, because there's this log of when they submitted, when you accepted, and the handoff.
Right.
There's also built-in options for things like text messaging. Okay. And this can also be good because it centralizes things. You don't have to worry about, the paralegal using their personal cell phone and having a side conversation with the client and then needing to later on ask for that. Right. Instead, it's all in the software. Okay. Now, everything that I'm showing you today, Zach, these are things I'm very excited about and I love it. But I also, being so deeply involved in Lolly, I also know what's coming. I'm very, very excited for what we have in store. We're going to be kind of rolling it out over the next few weeks, but there's some great things coming for people that's only going to accentuate a lot of the positives that we've got here for forms and client communication, and even for things like facilitating payment plans.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to see those things roll out as well. This is a lot of good, fantastic features that I think are very good for definitely for this specific use case, but also for other use cases as well. Yeah. Well, John, is there anything else that we want to kind of dig into here? I know that we could, I could go into the forums for probably 3 hours with you. So I know we could dig into a ton more, but just on kind of a surface level a tour, is there anything else that we want to highlight here?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Zach. There are a lot of things that are in the software that I'd love to share. Again, like if we get into like billing, invoicing, payment plans, we could spend another hour on that. But I would say I would want to make a kind of a personal invite to anybody watching to reach out to us for a demo. They can find us online at LollyLaw.com. And we're very open. Okay. So if you want to kind of reach out to us with a few basic questions, or if you want to engage with us to do a demo or a fitting session, we'd love to do that. I will mention that we do have, everything we've shown you today, plus a number of other options. Okay, we call them integrations or features, and these are just ways to customize the experience. Our technicians can assist firms to kind of craft the software to fit their operations rather than the other way around.
Right, right. Fantastic. Well, John, I really appreciate this tour today. And like you said, if people want to learn more and get a demo from you guys, they can go to LollyLaw.com and kind of go from there and get a ton more information. And as you can see, anybody watching this video, there is a lot more depth in there that we weren't even able to scratch the surface of. So hopefully we can get into another video here shortly. John, again, thank you for being with me. I certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Zach.